I was dreaming of an ocean at war with itself. The battle was brief. The waves fell into darkness. I just turned 72. So this is death, the undiscovered country. My eyes are clear again. My back, I'm no longer in pain. Lizzie strokes my head while Bessie weeps. Lizzie whispers, he's at peace, at last. Her hair once brown that I turned to gray. In the valley of the Typees, naked widows jump up and down to show their grief. Lizzie dons her Boston black. Had I died at sea, they would sew me up, weigh me down and splash into the blue. Instead, I'm being planted at Woodlawn next to my sons. Malcolm, who shot himself. Stanwix from tuberculosis. My stone bears vine, quill, and scroll, for I was a writer once, the man who lived with cannibals. A quiet service, witnessed by few, Tom's widow, Alan's daughters, Kate, a widow herself. Fanny did not attend, nor do I blame her. Mackie knew me when I was golden. Fanny knew only my eclipse and my darkness. There are two things parents should give their children, said Goethe, roots and wings. I gave mine neither, yet Bessie seemed to like me. Lizzie and her neuralgia, Bessie and her rheumatism, they're like sisters now, monkey roped for life. Down into the earth I go. The worms, not the sharks, shall have me. Lizzie takes down, she dismantles my library. So many books, and I swam through them all. 2 years before the mast, which put me aboard the Acushnet, the divine William, I fed his Lear to my whale. Rabelais, who told the truth and shamed the devil. Brown, who wondered if Christ ever laughed. Kant, who cried, dare to think. Goethe, remember to live. The Mosses. Aunt Mary's star-crossed gift. They were once my lifeblood. All of them now tombs for words. Of the making of many books, there was no end. Lizzie sits at my desk, sorting through papers. Some are placed in a tin, others dropped in a bucket. She takes out Billy Budd and reads the dedication. To Jack Chase, Englishman, wherever that great, places Billy in the tin. She takes out poems dedicated to her and reads Red Clover. How often would I present you with these roses of the meek, and how I'd yearly remind you of my finding a 4-leaf specimen on the 4th day of a certain bridal month, and my widow weeps. To know all is to forgive all, she whispers. Farewell, Elizabeth Nat Shaw. Your landlocked heart never sailed with mine, but when you became my mother, I truly loved you. I'll not haunt you. Like Rabelais, I go to seek a great, perhaps. Whitman called this island Mannahatta. Mannahatta, where her streets lead you down to wharves, to join other men, standing where their fathers once stood. They line up like sentinels, these pale creatures, tied to counters, chained to desk, all of them gazing into the blue. Father was an importer, crossed the ocean many times. He told me of monstrous waves mountain high, of ship masts bending like twigs in a storm, of Liverpool and London. We had furniture made in Europe, paintings too. One was of a whale, full of harpoons, and 3 boats chasing after it as fast as the men can row. Whaling is but a shadow now. The romance of the sea long departed. Yet men still come here to dream, and thus these wharves shall always be filled. New York sheds many skins, but the customs house remains. That and the rats who rule the wharves. 20 years I inspected cargo for $4 a day. Oh, those corrupt times when greased palms and winking eyes decreed what entered New York Harbor. I was true and kept my post when each political change flushed out those Augean stables. I was number 75, and no one knew their fathers had dreamt of my fayaway on her tropical isle. We returned here to Albany after father went bankrupt in '37. All are buried here now save Kate, who survives us, and Tom, who sleeps down in Snug Harbor. Father was a Boston Melville of Scottish descent. I thought him the most perfect of creatures. When he died, I sought him in others. Twice I found but lost him again. Father's death set me on my path at 12. Schooling ended, genteel poverty begun. Speak not of the bitterness of old age. A boy can feel all that and more when mildew blights his soul and the very air of paradise can never cause him to bloom. Mama added an E to deflect our shame. In the valley of the Taipes, she'd be on her haunches, kneading poey well into old age. But Mama was a lady and did not lift a finger. Instead, we lived on her family's charity till I could bear it no more and ran off to sea. Mama raised her children as Calvinists. How cruel to tell a child he's damned from birth and his only salvation is to embrace the Christ. But before I could, I questioned his father, who had turned his back on me. Why? I flung again and again to the heavens, each why a harpoon in God's back. Emerson declared evil as the mumps and measles of the world, a phase to be outgrown. Hawthorne saw evil for what it was and believed in nothing. I fell in between. I wanted to believe. But my soul could never harbor with a God said to be all-merciful, but proved time and again he was not. In Liverpool, I passed a cellar where a mother lay with children at her breasts, living bones barely alive. The street hag said she'd made her bed. The policeman said, "This be none of my business. I stole bread." But those creatures were well beyond food. When next I passed, they were dead, rotting, their bread uneaten. I witnessed 4 men being flogged aboard the United States, their crime a drunken brawl ashore. One was a boy, a mere boy named Peter, and he sobbed for mercy. The captain nodded, and the cat was swung, and Peter screamed, "My God, my God!" But God did not listen. 11 more strokes scarred that boy for life. I had to deny knowledge to make room for faith, says Kant. Gansevoort, my elder, was made in our father's image. He too was beautiful, witty, educated. Mama preferred him over her second son, who was so like her, sturdy, earthbound. Her side of the family, the Dutch side. Had Mama smiled on me, as she did on Gansevoort, she would have known my need for love was more than matched by the love I had to give. But she gave me sweet Helen, devoted Augusta, lively Kate, saintly Priscilla. I will bless her for that. Alan, my junior, was true head of the family. Oh, I was fond of him, but not of his stuffy legal world. I skewed it in Bartleby. Mama thought highly of Alan and proved it by dying 2 months after he did. Now she sleeps, her favorites at her side. Sail on, Herman Melville, sail on. My gallant Tom, gone in your prime, who could have known your noble heart was flawed? You worshipped me, your father, brother, and sailed in my footsteps, working up to captain. Mama was proud. Oh, but oh, was I prouder. We had our image taken together. We were truly brothers with our matching beards. And when you died, old sailors lined up in farewell to their governor. Sleep snug in Snug Harbor, my gallant Tom. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, Concord, Massachusetts. I once wrote to him, the hawthorn is a sweet flower. May it grow in every hedge. But no hawthorn grows on this piece of earth. His wife died in London. An ocean lies between them. Perhaps he waited till they could sail together, whereas this old spermaceti has left his harem to swim alone. I look back where the sun is rising. One last time, Thar she blows! And the minute you cushion it, lower away. Picture yourself for the first time in an open boat so slight 3 men can walk off with it some 15 miles from your ship and 100 times as far from the nearest land, giving chase to one of those monsters. Pull! Pull, ye bastards, the boatheader cries, and you tug with might and main at the oars. Pull, I say, break your lazy backs. The whale is soon ahead of you. Listen to the roar of the waters in his wake, matched by the pounding of your heart. Turn around and snatch a look at him. There he goes, surging through the brine that ripples about his head like the bow of a ship. Stand up and give it to him. The harpooner drops his oar. He snatches his iron. It flies, then everything's sight and sound as the whale flails about, then plunges madly ahead, taking you on a Nantucket sleigh ride. But this is nothing. You've just harpooned the beast. Now you must kill him. And when at last he turns to fight, he will fight to the death. He staves one boat with the sweep of his flukes. He crushes another to bit, men and all. The third boat pierces his mighty heart, and he spouts red. And when he rolls over, the battle's done. You tie the whale to your boat, and slowly, painfully row back to the ship, followed by 1,000 fins, the brown shark, the blue, the great white, the tiger, all are coming uninvited to the feast. The whale is chained to the ship. Its blubber is peeled round and round like an orange. The sharks too sink in, roll onto their backs, and scoop out chunks the size of your head. Monkey rope men stand on the whale and spear as many sharks as they can. And when the whale has been stripped of its blubber, its headless trunk, bleached white by the sun, is released, and the sharks bear it away, joined by screeching birds swooping down for their share. And that great mass of death floats on and on till all are lost in infinity. And the gore, and the smoke, and the stink when the blubber is rendered down, and the barrels of oil in the hold, where the late whale glides on as before, though he'll not rise again. And you wait for the next, Thar she blows. Stranded in Hawaii, I signed aboard the United States, sailing for home. I'm assigned to Jack Chase, captain of the foretop. Jack is a Briton, tall and well-knit with a clear, open eye, a fine, broad brow, and a nut-brown beard. No man ever had a better heart or bolder. He's loved by the crew, admired by the officers. Even the captain speaks to Jack with respect. Jack knows the verses of Byron. the romances of Scott. He speaks of Don Juan, of Rob Roy, of Macbeth and Ulysses. I think him the most perfect of creatures. When we reach Boston, I kiss that noble hand in farewell. Wherever you may be, Jack, take my best love with you, and may God bless you wherever you go. Well, I come home from the sea, bearded and burnt, a whale ship, my Harvard, my Yale. Gansevoort, prig that he is, keeps me from mama till I'm shaved and presentable again. But oh, am I different inside? I'm the man who lived with cannibals. How I round my family's eyes with tales from the valley of the Typees. My brother Tom is enchanted, and he begs me to write them down. I will. I shall. 6 months at sea. Yes, dear reader, as I write, 6 months out of sight of land, cruising after the sperm whale under the scorching sun of the line, tossed about on the billows of the wide rolling Pacific, the sky above, the sea around, nothing else. It's a cruel life, the sea. You feel the second flood has come, and you ride an ark of men and rats upon it. Think no more of home. These outcast bastards and illiterates are your family now, and the merciless sun makes the pitch bubble and ooze from the deck, and cape winds freeze you down to your marrow, and the maggots multiply in the food, and the roaches swarm everywhere else, and below decks becomes a stinking Sodom where I search for a friend but find none. And yet there are moments when each dawn comes out of Genesis, and let there be light upon these waters. Or when you pick out bright Centaurus, never to be seen in northern skies, when flying fish leap up into the air, then fall back like a shower of silver. Or being up in the mast with the ship but a plank below, one with the gulls, the clouds, the very sun, most of all the ocean with her shades and shadows, lost dreams and lost men, all wrapped in vast, unending silence. And for the first time, I saw the hand, if not the face, of God. This wheel of fortune which drags us down in order to lift us up. Harper's rejects Typee, but a Dr. Nichols has read my manuscript, convinces my brother it might get published in England. My brother has been appointed the post of American Secretary, and he takes Typee off to London with him. He writes, John Murray shall publish my book. I blink stupidly in total dismazement at his letter, and Irving, father of Rip, has read the proofs and recommends it to Wiley and Putnam. Thus Typee shall be published, both here and abroad. Chief Justice Lemuel Shaw was father's dearest friend. He can be fierce on the bench, but has a tender heart in private. When father died, Judge Shaw became our benefactor. I shall dedicate Typee to him. Like Byron, I wake up to find myself famous. Typee is the talk of London, followed by the American edition. Mama is of two minds, the scandal of my jumping ship to live with cannibals versus the royalties which start to arrive. She leans towards the latter. I write to Gansevoort, I receive no reply. He has died. Insane. In London. Truly his father's son. I go down to New York for his remains, and I meet Everett Dykink of Wiley and Putnam, a publisher's son. Books were his mother's milk. Die kink, diving duck. I love all men who dive. Ever takes me under his arm. He has read the proofs to Taipei and declares I must join the revolution for an American literature, free from English copyright. Young America, his battle cry. I start writing a sequel instead. But with celebrity come doubters. Taipei is but mere fancy. Its author has dreamed his own Robinson Crusoe. But my chummy Green turns up to declare it's all true, for he was Toby, who had also jumped ship. But the doubters are still not satisfied. Taipei must be a hoax. This sailor writes more like a gentleman than anything else. True, I am a gentleman's son, but at sea, I showed as brown a chest and as hard a hand as any tar yet could tell my tale with clarity and not a little style. Taipei is selling on both sides of the Atlantic, which is what matters most. And you owe it all to your brother, says Mama. I am not, never was, nor ever shall be her precious Gansevoort. But when will she realize her precious Gansevoort was never me? Well, Everett leaves Wiley and Putnam to start a new weekly, The Literary World. A wily move indeed. He coaxes, he pleads with me for Omu's first chapters, and I politely decline. Mother England is about to birth it. Omu quickly is into a second and a third edition, but brings the missionaries down in my head. I wrote what I saw in Tahiti. How the white man did more damage than good to those he calls heathens. He's brought disease and rats and mosquitoes with his God. He's covered their bodies and made them ashamed. He's taken their lands and made them no better than slaves. I was the snake in the valley of the Taipei. I would have corrupted by teaching its people to read and write, to think and quarrel and doubt. Oh, but I escaped before infecting them. May Kori Kori this very moment be napping beneath a palm tree, safe from us white devils. Whenever in Boston, I call on Judge Shaw and his library, but I soon come to call on his daughter Elizabeth. She knows why suitors call on the judge's only daughter, but she's chosen to wait rather than to rush into marriage. We talk of this and that. Do you know Helen shook the hand of Mr. Dickens, vowed never to wash hers again? No, I did not know that. And Mr. Melville, have you witnessed the practice by which the Taipeis are said to be famous? No, but I did manage to see some bones. Oh, I see. She does. The Daily Tribune reports, Mr. Herman Taipei Melville has been united in lawful wedlock to a young lady of Boston. The fair forsaken Fayaway will doubtless be suing for breach of promise. The fair forsaken Fayaway will have forgotten her Tomo by now, as she needs Poe for her two husbands. Oh God, I feel I'm below decks again, sharing this box with Lizzie, Alan, Sophia, Mama, Helen, Gus, Kate, Priscilla. Alan goes off to his downtown office. Tom has gone to sea. I go upstairs to earn my living. Lizzie blends so with my sister she starts to feel neglected. I give her Marty to transcribe, but she can't keep up. I call on Gus, who is swift of pen, and Lizzie goes back to dusting under Mama's baleful eyes. We dress for lunch. We dress for dinner. We dress to make calls. We dress to receive. The land begins to scorch my feet. I escape to Evetts and borrow Brown, Kant, Rabelais, Cervantes, Goethe, Dante, and my brain begins to unfold with Mardi. Yilla was a maiden from Arulia, the island of delights. To this isle, by some mystical power, she had been spirited from Amma, the land of her nativity. And hardly had the waters of Arulia washed white her olive skin and tinged her hair with gold, when she was snared in the tendrils of a vine, transformed into one of its blossoms, her soul folded up in its petals. Marty's reception baffles me. Typee was considered mere fiction. When I chose to fictionalize with Mardi, unlabeled no writer at all. Evatt praises it in his world, but the damage is done. The royalties shall trickle, not flow for Mardi. However, Evatt urges me to continue writing. There are arrows still, he says, in my quiver. I banish Brown, that cracked archangel, and I begin a nursery tale about a fatherless lad bound for Liverpool. His sole companion, his father's out-of-date travel guide. So vivid now was the impression of his having been here that I felt like running on and overtaking him at the town hall adjoining near Castle Street, but I soon checked myself when realizing he'd gone whither no sun's search could find him on this earth. And I had much ado to keep from tears. Where is the foundling's father hidden? My son, I know not how much he weighs, but it takes 3 nurses to dress him, and he's as lusty as a Caesar. I shall call him Barbarossa, or Ferdinand, or Bonaparte. Malcolm, says Gus. Malcolm it is. His first words were, "Where's that old man?" "I'm here, Mackie. I'll always be here." Dolt, an ass that I am. But until a few months ago, I had not read the Divine William. He's full of sermons on the mount, and gentle, I gentle as Jesus. And through the mouths of his Hamlet and Lear, he speaks what we know to be true, though it be madness to even hint of it. There's nothing, either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. There's nothing, either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Oh, this wheel of fortune, which lifts us up only to drag us down again. Again, I'm forced to write about the sea. Typee and Omu were my wanderings. Redburn, my merchant vessel. White Jacket, my man of war. That leaves the catching and killing of whales. Not fit company for ladies to read in their beds. My heart's not in it, for blubber is blubber. You can get oil out of it, but the poetry will run as hard as sap from a frozen maple. Oh, Manhattan is positively an oven in summer. We join Aunt Mary in Pittsfield. Here, she says, giving me a book, Mosses from an Old Manse. Patch of moss is pasted inside from Salem, she says. An outing has been planned up Monument Mountain. Evatt has been coaxed from Manhattan. Dr. Holmes is here summering. From Boston comes the plumper half of Ticknor and Fields. A tall, balding Apollo approaches, and a blue wave rolls over me, for this be Nathaniel Hawthorne, man of the mosses. I passed his farmhouse several times, but never knew he lived there. Talking to him is like wooing a shy maiden, but the divine magnet is upon him and my mettle responds. He's been called a pleasant writer. Thus I had stayed away from his work, but when I read his mosses, I knew him. Beneath his humor and his sunshine lies a blackness, the same blackness from which Shakespeare spun his tales, but the divine William wrote with a muzzle on his soul. His own Elizabethans put it there. He could only speak his truth through his madmen. But no madmen for Hawthorne, no. He writes with the freedom that comes only from knowing his heart totally unfettered. I know the course, the path his heart has taken. No man can soar to such heights without plunging first to the bottom. Any fish can swim near the surface, but it takes a great whale to go down 5 miles or more. And if he can't find the bottom, no amount of lead in the world can fashion the plummet that will. I think him the most perfect of creatures. To he who built this farmhouse, could you have known after clearing this land, this vista would be yours? Behold Greylock, with all his hills about him, like Charlemagne among his peers. But there's no piazza, and one must be had. The house is wide, my fortune narrow. On which side should I build? To the east the hills. Come December, the dawns drape those highlands with red-barred plaids and tartans, but to the north is Charlemagne. To the south, apple trees, the Maytime orchards all in white. Their leaves and apples come October, but to the north is Charlemagne. To the west, a rising pasture leading up to the maples. How the greens streak through the browns and grays when spring awakens, but to the north is Charlemagne. I turn over the soil, and I recover arrowheads from a vanished tribe. I christen this my home, Arrowhead. To the north is Charlemagne. 6 miles away is Hawthorne. And the sun is at its zenith. I must start anew. I'll keep my bumpkin, but call him Ishmael. Ishmael, born to wander. Bulkington stood full 6 feet in height with noble shoulders and a chest like a coffer dam. Adieu, Bulkington, you'll not be the hero after all. Adieu for now. My whaler must become a democracy. Young America. The Acushnet had only white men, but come aboard the Pequod, you men of red and yellow, brown and black. And God created great whales, the mighty whales which swim in a sea of water and have a sea of oil swimming in them. Mocha Dick was an old bull whale of massive size and strength. From age or freak of nature, he was white as wool. On Tower Hill in London, a crippled beggar holds a painted board showing how he lost his leg. There are 3 boats and 3 whales, and his boat is being crunched by one of the whales. In the lower jaw are 42 teeth of formidable size, but conical in shape. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook? Can you fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? I will! I shall! What tune is it ye pull to, men? A dead whale or a stove boat? And Ahab, son of Omri, did evil in the face of the Lord above all that came before him. Ha, 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 ha. Autumn in the Berkshires. I find myself jaquizing in the woods, the air so ripe and ruddy, 'tis must be harvest time with the angels. How the reds of the maples contrast with the green of the pine, yet harmonize. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a drizzly, damp November in my soul, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. No sooner is ground broken than the neighbors laugh. A piazza facing north. True, the winter winds will pummel me, but I'll walk my piazza as if on ships sailing round Cape Horn. And when August comes and I'm in the shade, I'll pity those in the sun. But man, proud man, his glassy essence like an angry ape, plays such fantastic tricks on high heaven as make the angels weep. Talk not to me of blasphemy, man. I'd strike the sun if it insulted me. Oh, I have a sort of sea feeling now the ground is covered with snow. In the mornings, I look out my window as I would out of the porthole of a ship in the Atlantic. My room seems a ship's cabin. At nights when I awake and I hear the wind shrieking, I almost fancy there's too much sail in the house. I'd better get on the roof and rig in the chimney. The whale struck the Essex to windward directly under the cathead and stove in her bows. He passed under the ship again, went off to leeward, and we saw no more of him. Oh, I need 50 fast-writing youth. For Gus now runs the household. Helen can't keep up with me. Lizzie's no housekeeper, and Mama lets her know it. Nor is she much of a wife. Always off to Boston to visit her father. Maids are May when they are maids, but the sky changes when they are wives. I sweet William that they do. The Acushnet was wrecked off St. Lawrence in August. The crew rescued the ship, a total loss. 1,300 barrels in her hold. Less than 300 saved, less than 300. That side blow through Mrs. Hawthorne will not do. I'm not to be charmed out of my promised pleasure by any of that lady's Cyrenisms. You, sir, I hold accountable. The visit in all its original integrity must be made. Come, no nonsense. If you don't, I will send constables after you. Hawthorne presents me with his gables. It surpasses his other work. But something is lacking in the man himself. Speak, thou vast and venerable head. Of all divers thou hast dived the deepest. That head upon which the upper sun now gleams has moved amid this world's foundations, where unrecorded names and navies rust, and untold hopes and anchors rot, where in her murderous hold the earth is ballasted with bones of millions of the drowned. O head, thou hast seen enough to split the planets and make an infidel of Abraham, and not one syllable is thine. I come down to New York to slave on the book while the first chapters are being pushed through the press. It's the only way I can finish now. I'm so far behind schedule. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah. Oh, I hear flattering things about the Gables. A second edition is announced. His portrait by Thompson is on display. He is on the ascendant. What reputation I have is horrible. To go down to posterity as the man who lived with cannibals. What have I done? Had I written and completed my whaling epic by now as planned? Instead, this. Oh. I come home to recline on the grass. When I finish the book, reclining upon it, if ever, my dear Hawthorne, in the eternal times that are to come, you and I shall sit down together in paradise in some little shady corner by ourselves. And if we shall by any means be able to smuggle a basket of champagne there, and strike and click our glasses and heads together till both shall musically ring in concert, then, oh, my dear fellow mortal, how shall we pleasantly discourse upon all things manifold, which now so distress us, when all the earth shall be but a reminiscence, Yea, its final dissolution and antiquity. Yes, let us look forward to such things. Stand close to me, Starbuck. Let me look into a human eye. It is better than to gaze upon sea or sky, better than to gaze upon God. One eye shut, one eye blinking. Roll on, thou dark and deep blue ocean. 10,000 blubber hunters sweep over thee in vain. Lightning flashes through my skull. Mine eyeballs ache. My whole beaten brain seems as beheaded and rolling on some stunning ground. The throat is capacious enough to give passage to the body of a man, and I throw Lear down its throat and leap in after him. Blow, winds, and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow, you cataracts and hurricanos. Spout till you have drenched our steeples, drowned the cocks, you sulphurous and thought-executing fires. Vaunt couriers to oak-cleaving thunderbolts, singe my white head. And thou, all shaking thunder, strike flat the thick rotundity of the world. Toward thee I roll, thou all-destroying but unconquering whale. From the last I grapple with thee, from hell's heart I stab at thee. Sink all coffins and all hearses into one common pool, and since neither can be mine, let me tow it to pieces while still chasing thee. Thou damned whale. Thus, I give up the spear. And I alone am escaped to tell thee. I've written a wicked book, but feel spotless as the lamb. I'm 31 years old. In token of my admiration for his genius, this book is inscribed to Nathaniel Hawthorne. Hawthorne has moved back to Concord away from my tentacles. He writes to me about the whale. He admires portions, but cares not a penny for the book. His wife understands what I've written, but she also understands him. Oh, I assure her, I promise her my next book shall be a rural bowl of milk. But damning reviews of the whale curdle me. This was to be my masterpiece, not my greatest failure. Now I'll never pay the judge back for Arrowhead. Pierre becomes my revenge, starting with my father. There were rumors after his death. 2 women visiting Uncle Thomas, the younger my half-sister born out of wedlock. I never met her, my uncle paid them off, and yet she still haunts me. And my perfect father, this true mortal flesh which melted, resolved itself into dew and left us penniless. Pierre learns of his half-sister. He burns his father's portrait, and he passes her off as his wife. If the whale was my Lear, Pierre shall be my Hamlet. I plunge even deeper than before, burrowing through the ocean floor down to the fiery kingdom. My study is like ice, my fingers are blue, one eye shut while I blink with the other. One candle alone burns at my side, one for the blood of men is mixed in with the sperm. I don't eat so they can have bread. When I sleep, I dream of black oceans. The judge's daughter has Holmes pay a call. know why the little doctor has been summoned. Am I going mad? Like my father and my brother. Oh, but Herman be a clever one. He swims up and up and up and up to the surface to smile and be a villain. We talk of books, Holmes and I. He declares I'm not mad, merely tired. Holmes is right and wrong. The sharks are few but have their say. Disgusting, repulsive, French and German decadence. Ever downright hates Pierre, rupturing our friendship. Young America indeed. I write stories so my family can butter their bread. I turn my inner disgust outward with the confidence man, where the devil walks among the fools of the earth. I'm so repulsed by my vision, I send it to Harper's unfinished, it fails. Everything I write fails now. The judge suggests I go abroad for my health. In other words, for everyone's sanity. That good old man will pay for my trip, though he puts me further in his debt. I will go to the Holy Land to seek him. But first, stop in Liverpool to find the other him. Hawthorne and I, we sit among the dunes, our cigars an excuse for silence. I talk about God. Sooner or later, I will talk about God. I see pity in Hawthorne's eyes. He too must think me mad. Well, I understand him now. He wants to be left alone, not just by me, but by everybody. He lives at the bottom of the deepest, darkest, blackest well, content with his circle of blue above him. Had he not left Berkshire, I would have drowned in that well. Oh, but I had to see him one last time. May I find answers in the Holy Land, for my metal turns to no magnet anywhere. Judea is made of stones. Stones are all about you, stony mountains and stony plains, stony fields, stony walls, stony hearts, stony eyes. Jerusalem has the cold gray eye of a cold old man. The holy sepulchre reeks of a charnel house. Turkish policemen smoke outside. There's a church within a church. I squeeze past the stone where the angel sat into the blazing tomb. I look down upon a glittering slab, and then I file out, disappointed, past the smoking Turks. I go away, disappointed, and I don't bother to question, for I know now that the voice of God is silence, 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 silence. Taken to writing poetry, I see Mama's look. Poems don't sell. My back bothers me. Rheumatism. Mackie talks back to his mother. Stanny's bowels are weak. Bessie suffers from allergies. Fanny shuns me. Why couldn't I have beautiful, happy children? War is whispered or shouted in the streets. Lincoln is elected. South Carolina secedes with more to follow. Oh, the wild huzzahs. War is declared. Union flags flutter on Berkshire roofs. Militias drill in the green, and then they march away. And the young were all elation, hearing Sumter's cannon roar. And they thought how tame the nation in the age that went before. But the elders with foreboding mourned the days forever o'er, and recalled the forest proverb, the Iroquois old saw, grief to every gray beard when young Indians lead the war. The bulletin board becomes the town's focus. People push to read the dispatches. Oh, the cheers for those early victories. With the snow come casualties. And when winter has turned to spring, people have had enough. They don't want to think of skulls lined up like pine cones or of moldy coats filled with bones. The elms that wave on Malvern Hill in prime of morn in May. Recall ye how McClellan's men here stood at bay? Does the elmwood recall the haggard beards of blood? Ah, the sod what thousands meet. Does Malvern Wood bethink itself and muse and brood? We elms of Malvern Hill remember everything, but sap the twig will fill, wag the world how it will. Leaves must be green in spring. My brother Alan and I have made a trade. Arrowhead for Manhattan. The wife hates Pittsfield winters. I miss Manhattan's energy. What have I to do with Berkshire? Oh, Hawthorne. I don't recognize her. My Manhattan was still Dutch at heart, concentrated down at the tip. The streets were interlaced fingers with names. Now she pushes north with numbers. I was born on Pearl. I shall dwell on East 26th. Everett in the bookshops remains, but the rest has become war's workshop. Manhattan grunts out rifles. Brooklyn hammers out ships. Uniformed men crowd the streets. Storefronts become recruiting centers. Cannons grow on the sidewalks. The streets leading down to the wharves end in charred remains from the draft riots. The oceans of the world have stopped. Hawthorne has died in his sleep on a trip with his friend Pierce. I should have kept his letters. They might comfort me now, but I burned them all back at Arrowhead. I take down a copy of his Mosses and I read a passage from the Celestial Railroad. There was one strange thing that troubled me amid the occupations or amusements of the fair. Nothing was more common than for a person suddenly to vanish like a bubble and be never more seen again of his fellows, and so accustomed were the latter to this that they went on with their business as if nothing had happened. But it was otherwise with me. Nothing can be finer than that. My battle piece is another failure. Nobody wants war poetry now. Lincoln is dead. The flags are taken down, the cannons wheeled away. The elms of Malvern Hill will remember, but people want to forget. I become number 75 for $4 a day. Ah! No! No, it was not a suicide. Mackey was cleaning his pistol and it went off. I had locked him out, coming home drunk night after night after night. He wanted to go to sea. I said, no, the sea's not the answer. It's never the answer. He joined the militia instead, strutting in his uniform, showing off his pistol, out drinking night after night. The wife sat up for him. He promised to reform. He locked himself in his room. I broke down the door and I found him, pistol in hand, bullet in brain. It was not a suicide. Mackie was cleaning his pistol. He was cleaning his pistol. Oh, God, he was cleaning his pistol. His first words were, with that old man. I don't know, Mackie. He sailed away long, long ago in the valley of the Typees, in the valley of the Typees. My brain is ablaze, writing Chlorel. I stumble through my own holy land, this same dull land which breeds but blues and melancholy. I'm a whirlpool of ink and whiskey, birthing a monster longer than Milton, longer than Homer, dragging Fanny out of her bed to proof the pages. Earn your keep, girl! I'm a voice in the wilderness with no echo, fit company for snakes and scorpions. Mine eyes fixed on the flinty stone which lay there at my feet, but soon thought would wander. Then the stone I caught, convulsed it in my hand, till blood oozed from these nails. I was alone. Alone, ah, no, not long alone. A spirit entered me. 'Twas he, the tempter. He mocked wise strife. Dost hunger for the bread of life? Thou lackest faith. True faith would be fed. True faith could turn that stone to bread. That stone thou holdest. Harper's publishes Chlorel at Uncle Peter's expense. The sharks are few, but have their say. Queequeg no care what God made him shark. But to God, what made him shark must be one damn Injun. Go mad. I cannot. I maintain the perilous outpost of the same. I read in the Academy, the poet Buchanan has sought me out. He's found Whitman, but not this Triton who lives in New York. When Lizzie came into her inheritance, this Triton retired from the customs house and from life itself. My appetite is good, though my back is not. I still go for walks, though not as far. I still read. I still buy books. I still write, but I publish privately, and I'm content to be forgotten. I take down a copy of Evatt's Cyclopedia, published ages ago. I'm represented by Red Burn. Evatt cared not for the whale. His battle cry, Young America. And the battle has been won. We have a new literature with its own voice, its own culture. But I care not for today's writers. My era wrote of the sea, of the forest, of the new world. But after the war, we were no longer new, no longer young. Each generation writes what it knows and reads what it wants. Realism, not romance. Today's battle cry. Enough. I've had my day. Let the realists have theirs. but who in turn shall replace them? I rent a pew in All Souls Church. This be Father's faith, more compassionate than Mama's. The Reverend Williams encourages me to seek answers, though I may not find them, that the mysteries of God may remain just that, mysteries. I may be a mystery to God myself, this clay who questions yet clings to him. Over half a lifetime ago, I gave these words to my father Mattel. The ribs and terrors in the whale arched over me a dismal gloom, while all God's sunlit waves rolled by and left me deepening down to doom. In black distress, I called my God, when I could scarce believe him mine. He bowed his ear to my complaint. No more the whale did me confine. My song forever shall record that terrible, that joyful hour. I give the glory to my God. His all the worship and the power, to which I too can now say amen. To Jack Chase, Englishman, wherever that great heart may now be, here on earth or harbored in paradise. You are done, Billy Budd. May you live to be published. Prospero breaks his staff. I lay down my pen. I'm sleepy, and the oozy weeds about me drift. I was dreaming of an ocean at war with itself. I'm a beardless boy again. A ship of glass sails toward me. Father brought it home from Europe. It is kept under glass in our parlor. A well-knit man with a nut-brown beard beckons, for the sun is setting one last time. We sail past a whale full of harpoons, and 3 boats chasing after it as fast as the men can row. Recite your Byron, says the captain, and I obey. And I have loved thee, ocean, and my joy of youthful sports was on thy breast to be born, like thy bubbles onward. As we near land, the captain smiles, and becomes my perfect father, who takes me up, for I have dwindled down to infancy. And he gives me to my mother, who welcomes me back inside her, where I safely sleep, as whales and walruses rush about. And as I dissolve, there are ounds. He's at peace at last. Thank you. very much. I've been reading Joseph Conrad. God, he's just as good on the sea as Melville. I think I might try to put together a show with some of Ahab's soliloquies and some of Lord Jim's soliloquies. And in any event, I just wanted to say that Carl Rossi, who wrote this play, is a dear, dear friend of mine. He's a brilliant man. He has a degree in dramaturgy and playwriting from UConn, but it's awfully hard to make a living in the theater, as anyone knows. So he's the office manager of a big law firm in downtown Boston. But he wrote a Whistler show for another actor that never performed it, and I took it on. But he wrote this show specifically with me in mind, and he kept changing things, and finally I said to him, I performed this for the first time in the summer of 2017, and I said, Carl, you can't keep changing it. I'm trying to memorize it, and I just, so we had kind of a falling out, which we've since made up. But I showed the script to a professor friend of mine who teaches English, and she said, Stephen, I think it's well done. This guy did his research, but I don't know, that Moby Dick part with all the references to Homer and the Bible and Shakespeare, I'm just afraid it's a little bit esoteric and maybe people won't get it. So I said something to Carl, and he said, what do you want me to do? Dumb it down? He said, the people that get the Shakespeare and the Bible quotes will get them, and the people that don't, it just keeps rolling on. But what he wanted to do is he wanted to show you how frenzied Melville was when he was in the heat of writing Moby Dick. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Kay Redfield Jamison. She wrote a fabulous book called The Unquiet Mind, which is about bipolar disorder. She is bipolar. She also wrote this extraordinary book called Touched with Fire. And Touched with Fire is about people that have mental illness. And she names all these people that she thinks were bipolar. And she thinks that Melville was bipolar. It makes sense to me. And the history of mental illness in his family, his father, his brother. So anyway, with that said, I want to just say to people, this is the first time I've done this show in 4 months. And I'm telling you this not because I'm looking for any sympathy or anything, because I want your positive energy. I'm having major heart surgery next month. I'm having triple bypass. I'm having a new valve put in. I got really sick. I was in a hospital or a nursing home for 9 weeks, getting round-the-clock IV drip treatment every 4 hours. I was really sick. They were about to operate on me, and they did an MRI, they found I had an abscess in the back of my brain. So I'm having another MRI done. If the abscess has gone down, which it has 3 times in a row, if it's gone down and maybe formed some scar tissue, then they feel it's safe enough to operate. I'm pretty fatalistic in some ways. I feel optimistic. I mean, they do these operations now all the time. But, it's amazing. They're going to open me up, So, the middle of next month, if you can send me out some, good, religious energy, pagan energy, Mother Earth energy, I don't know, whatever. Just send me some good energy if you would. And I also have copies of the script. I usually have DVDs, but I ran out of them. But I've got copies of the Melville script, and I've got DVDs of my performing as Whitman, which I did here years ago. If anybody would like a copy of the script, and I could maybe sign it for you, that's the end of that commercial. And any questions or thoughts, or?
I think you showed all kinds of energy here today.
Yeah. I took a 2-hour nap this afternoon. Yeah. No, I say to people, people say to me, you're going to have so much energy after you have this operation. And I say, I hope so, because I feel not so great now. Typically I do 2 things in a day. Like I'll teach a class and then I'll do a performance. But since I went back to work, which was December, I've kept it to like 3 bookings a week. And I never try to do 2 things in one day. And a lot of times I'm trying to watch Lawrence O'Donnell or Rachel.
You did a terrific job. It was really.
Yeah, and I fall asleep, you know. I wake up, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm asleep on the recliner.
We've
But
got a
anyway.
whole lot of parts, so I think we're gonna be just fine.
Well, I hope so, too, yeah. Thank you so much. You guys were a great audience. Thank you.